There we go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Signals and Symptoms podcast. As usual, we are very excited with my three besties. Now we have Dr. Mannering, Dr. Castro, and Mr. Marks. So I'm just going to call them Harvey, Isha, and Ed. And of course, all the three co-hosts are present. Ed is in transit, but as usual, his amazing, reverence to making this a success has been here through while he's traveling. Today, we have a very special guest, Dr. Baston. She's the chief executive officer, CEO of Venile Health, and we're going to talk about this and her journey into what we call true entrepreneurship and understanding everything. Now, as you know, Harvey is a full blown AI. This is not his real face. This is AI that's talking. And me, I'm partly, AI. And then we have Isha here, who is truly, truly grounding us, as most women do in our lives, to reality, which is patient, patient, patient first. And that's where Dr. Baston and her information comes in. First of all, she has a wealth of information. If I go through this, it's going to take a whole hour. That she has been in the Department of Health, Commissioner of Health, etc., etc. But more importantly, she has been working on what we call coordination of health from a patient view. And again, we all need to be grounded in this age of AI and technology and not forget why we exist in the first place, and that is patience. Having said that, thank you so much, Dr. Baston, for coming on our show. We are very grateful for your, presence. As usual, first, go ahead. I apologize for the crappy introduction. Introduce yourself. Tell us about your journey, and then why you're doing what you're doing.
Thanks so much. It's great to get to have this time with all of you and formally meet you. And of course, everything you all do is so impressive. So I feel very honored to be in this room with you, in this virtual room. So yeah, I'm Dr. Caitlin Basson. I'm a primary care doctor and addiction doctor by background and training. And I spent most of my early career building what I refer to as integrated care, right? So I'm pulling together mental health and addiction care with regular medical care or primary care. Because for so long, way too long, mental health and addiction has been carved out, right? And then kind of pushed to a side and not treated by the same doctors, the same systems. People didn't know what was going on. So everything was really fragmented. And in doing that, I had to do a lot of work. I was in Camden, New Jersey at a university hospital there, and that's where I started. And I had to do a ton of work on policy, actually, because we had to have the licensing to support it and payment models to support it. And all of the system had to make it work. And that brought me basically to a lot of work with Health and Human Services in New Jersey. And then long story short, that landed me in the health commissioner role under the Murphy administration. That and a lot of work on maternal mortality and how that interfaces with the work I was doing. And so I got to know the Murphy administration really well, and the First Lady, Tammy Murphy at the time, and all that policy work and trying to fix things made it feel really, really nice to have the opportunity to be the health commissioner for the state, because I could try to fix things from that chair for a little while, kind of write the policies or the regs, fix the regs that I was trying to fix from the outside for a long time. And then after that, the hospital CEO who was running the state public hospital stepped down kind of rapidly. He got another position, and the governor asked me to step in and be interim hospital CEO, which I had planned to transition out of health commissioner to the Vinyl Health team, but had kind of a stint running a hospital in between, which was an incredible privilege. The public hospital in Newark, New Jersey is incredibly, it's got the best academic clinicians, people who are all heart, doing true public hospital, safety net hospital work. And it was an opportunity to kind of go back to a health system, an academic health system, and run it from a different angle and try to fix things from that angle. And then I finally got to come out to the Vinyl Health team and build what I'm building now, which gives me a nimble lens and lets me fully focus on the patient experience. Like, what do patients and their families need when they're getting healthcare? So that's 100% of what I think about all day, every day. And then, of course, as a doctor, in order for it to work for patients, it has to work for us too. So I think about that too.
Love it. Love it.
Amazing.
One of my favorite phrases is it's human plus AI combined. And it's not just any human, is what I say. It's the right human for the right job. So obviously, I love your space already. You're a doctor, you're using technology, and you have this nice niche for public health and for what to do for patients at another level because you're looking at it more global and then you're trying to scale it. So, God, I can't wait to hear more about what you guys are doing.
Thanks. Yeah, it's exciting to try to pull all these things together and make the system work better for people because, like you said in the beginning, right, this is why we all went into healthcare. We decided to do this work because we wanted to help people. Oh my gosh, what a cute dog.
Sorry,
That
she was
is
being a
amazing.
mess. So I was like, she was trying to get the curtain.
Great.
Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So basically, what Vinyl Health does is we are a personal health assistant for an individual and their family who's navigating healthcare. Like I said, that's like the one liner. But what does that mean? It means for us that we interpret what's happening in healthcare for people. So we translate it into plain language. So if you're seeing a doctor or you're ingesting your medical records, it's not just a bunch of gobbledygook that is, what our records are. They're so much information. I used to call the EHR like a giant junk drawer, right? My patients would be like, why don't you know that my cardiologist said this? And I would say, let's look at it together. I'm sure it's in here. We're just going to have to go through some of these notes and find where it's buried in this record, right? And certainly AI and other tools are getting better at surfacing that information, but not great, and not great at doing it for patients. And so that's step one. We interpret what's happening and put it in plain language and help people understand it. Then step two is we organize it in a way that helps them keep track of what they need to do or what they want to do. And it's a mix of their personal goals and things they want their providers to know about themselves and things that their providers are recommending for them to do to take care of themselves. And so it's both this management tool and care management. And then people don't go through healthcare alone. And so we allow them to loop in their community at different levels so that they can get the help they need. And by doing that, we hopefully will deduplicate a lot of efforts that everyone else on the outside is trying to do when we're trying to care manage people without keeping the people in the loop as part of that plan.
Amazing. This is interesting. Very interesting. We just built a module in Save Life AI as well, but we concentrated only on the patients. The physicians. Basically, you have, for example, admissions, and you have a universal patient record. You have the complete medical chronology, labs, etc. I'm going to show. I don't want to toot my own horn, but you can actually have what we call EHR chat. And that's really, where's the patient information, all of that. I'm not going to go through this today. But now let's talk about the core thing that you're building. And then, of course, I have a lot of conversations about policies, procedures, data silos, all of that, etc. So first and foremost, let's just start with Isha, and then you guys can discuss because she's a pediatrician, and now your platform where the client, or that's the word which is a bad word, but anyways, patient is not talking to you, and how does that coordinate and how does that help? Because that is, I believe, the most important, because mothers are gonna kill you when the mom comes in and how do you not know about this? And you're so right. And it just like I can't like stupid Epic is not syncing. I'm just saying, no offense to Epic either, because there's data silos that they have to deal with too. But what I'm saying is that Isha, why don't you format the question much better than I would?
Well, I'm just thinking about, let's say, a typical clinic visit, right? I have maybe the patient who's there for their well checkup. Then I have maybe two siblings that came along with the parent. And I mean, to put it plainly, it gets chaotic in the room sometimes. And I'm just like, it's my norm. So it doesn't faze me, but I'm trying to think of this, Vinyl trying to make sense of the visit. And you have all these conflicting noises coming from everywhere. But I think the underlying kind of root, what it's trying to achieve is allow that mom or parent to be in the moment with their kid, soothing their kid, trying to listen to the doctor, but then they have that safety net of going home and they're trying to remember, what was the thing that she told me to do? What was the medication I'm supposed to take? What was the dose that they said? These are the things that I would often have to kind of type into the patient notes so that the patient could access it on, the portal system. But to have that already documented, I mean, I think it does, consider the clinician there. I guess, one of the questions that I have is one, am I correct in kind of my assessment of, what I think we're trying to achieve? And two, does it stay consistent with what the care, the provider is actually recommending? Is there like a safety check in place to make sure that what I am intending to say gets across? Because we all know as physicians, medicine is nuanced, and that's the art of it. And that's one of the things we love about it. And that's what I think is so interesting in these conversations, because now, we take this nuanced art of medicine and translate it into something that not only follows the standard of care, but serves our patients and allows them to actually go home with a solid understanding of what we said. I have been the patient in the room too on that end. And I'm shocked as a physician. I go home sometimes and I'm like, what exactly, like what order am I supposed to do this in? So I love the concept, and I just would love to hear more thoughts on that.
It's an amazing question. I love talking to doctors about this because it's exactly, you're thinking exactly the way I think about it, which is, number one, you're right. So a mom's in here, 3 kids, they have 3 things to keep. I'm a family doctor, so I feel like, right? They like multiple kids.
We love chaos.
Grandma and a kid at the same time, right? It's so delightful. But that's a lot to keep straight in your brain. And even when you're taking care of just yourself, less than half of what a doctor says in a visit is remembered. And so if you're a doctor like I am in primary care, or you're trying to make sure people understand, I did a lot of that closed loop communication at the end, right? All right, now you, mom, tell me what you heard. And we try our best to do that, but are we going to recap the whole visit? Are we going to get everything? Even if she says it right then, is she going to remember when she goes home? It's really tricky. And then of course we're trying to type everything up in the after visit summary. We have our note, and then we're trying to give them instructions or pull in instructions. And is that giving them everything we said? So when they say that mom has vinyl, it's on her phone. She has her profile, and then she has a nice little drop down for each of her kids' profiles. And she just goes from her profile to kid 1. And then she hits note taker. And then she's like, okay, doc, I've got the note taker going. Let's go. And then you do the visit. She can be present. She can calm her crying baby while she's trying to listen to what you're saying about her other kid. And it takes the notes for her. And then at the end of that, what it gives her is a summary and the to-dos. Now, what you asked, which I think is so smart, is something that we talk about all the time. There are 2 things we want. We want the patient in the loop, and we want them to truly understand, is this, like, what did I have to do when I got home? Okay, now I don't have to try to remember or furiously take notes in a visit. It's all here. And then we want the provider in the loop. And so it's totally up to you as a provider. You can be like, look, it's your note taker. I want nothing to do with this. Or you can be involved, like you said, and say, all right, great, let's look at it together. So at the end of the visit, all of these things pop up. And if you want, there are 2 ways we can do this. You can just scan a QR code, see it all, and edit things that you're like, yeah, that was almost right, but I'm going to change this for you, and copy and paste it into your ABS. Or we can do an integration with your clinic so it auto-populates in your ABS. And then as it pops up, you change anything and it goes in your ABS and it goes home with the patient.
You can do that like as you finalize your notes, basically.
Yep. That's it. It's all there. And your ABS would be pre-populated for you, or worst case scenario, you're copy and pasting in it. So it's one less thing for you to think about or document. Now, let me talk about one other tiny thing that I think it's a small detail, big impact. One of the things that happens when you use AI note takers, right? I'm a doctor, so I use those all the time. Like, I want to make eye contact with you. I want to turn my computer. We want to talk about it together, and I don't want to be typing. What that is picking up for us as doctors, right, is it's filling in our clinical note. It's filling in our SOAP note or our OPSO note. It's putting in all the details we need for billing, the details we need for documentation because of compliance. It's doing a little bit of communicating to other providers and a little bit of communicating to the patient, but like it has all these primary purposes, right? It has to meet compliance. There's a lot that happens in a visit that we do for patients that is education, that is explaining things. There was a visit we captured recently where somebody was seeing a pulmonologist who had really bad asthma. And that pulmonologist spent a bunch of time explaining to the patient what was happening in their lungs with their asthma and why they wanted to use their inhalers a certain way, or why they wanted them to do certain things in cold weather or when they're running or in allergy season. They did all this education. That's nowhere in the clinical note. That's not going to be in Epic when you're done. Our app has a whole education section. And so the top line would say, your provider explained what's happening in your lungs with asthma. And then when you click on it, it has a summary of all that education that patient gets to go home with. And let's say it's a mom who took their kid in for that visit, but the dad was working that day, or maybe the parents are separated. That mom can share that dad's already looped into that record, and they can read all the same things.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just imagining like some of the non-medical family members that I know that, are trying to call me and I'm like, hey, how was your cardiologist appointment? How was your specialist appointment? And they're trying to explain what was told to them. And I'm like, okay, but did you really, because I remember like so many times in clinic, just putting a lot of energy into trying to explain something in a way that made sense, and it makes sense at the time, but to be able to refer to it is great. And what I'm hearing is when it's integrated into your EHR in clinic, it functions as a scribe as well as a tool for that family that gives them the education and kind of the follow through for what was discussed.
Exactly. And one of the beauties of what we can do is, say your clinic, you're already using a note taker. The doctor's using an ambient note taker, right? Mm-hmm. We can just connect. So we can ingest the same transcript that you're using for your note, but make a note for the patient. Mm-hmm. And so then it's the same information in the background doing two things. Let's say we're in a situation where there isn't that. There's a doula coming home doing a home visit, or you have a home health aide, or you have a physical therapist or an occupational therapist that the kiddo is seeing, and they don't use an ambient scribe. Then you can use that scribe, and the patient can send something back to their provider that you would never otherwise see. Right. Now, when people ask me things like, what are we doing about wearables? And what are we doing about all this outside data? And what are we doing with all this other stuff? My first reaction as a doctor is like, oh, great, more data, right? But one of the beauties of what we created with this, I talk about the doctor in the loop, right? The provider in the loop, is that we make a summary page. And that summary page pulls in the most relevant information from their chart, from their note, and things the patient wants you to know. So if they have questions for you they don't want to forget, if they have goals they want you to know about, if it's a patient with really complex history, and they're like, hey, I have been struggling with this chronic pain for a long time, and I have a terrible reaction to NSAIDs. I've gotten ulcers in the past. I just need you to know that right up front. They can put this history in. We summarize it in like a 2-liner that a doctor can read, and you get to see it.
And they bring that in, and they kind of show you with the QR. But they can't send that. Can they send it to you ahead of time?
Yeah, so the way that we designed this, they can send it to you ahead of time. If there's a portal you want them to send it in, if you want it through your MyChart, or you want it in a portal, or you want it in an email, they can send it. Or if we have the provider log in, if you have a Vinyl, say you log into Vinyl and you're like, yeah, I have a bunch of patients using Vinyl now, so I have my own, we can send you a notification, like a push, on the day, the night before, however you want it to be set up, of the day you see patients, the morning before, 5 minutes before. If you're like, I just want this to come through so that I look at it, read it really quick, and that's how I would do it, by the way. Just like I wasn't a night before. I was like, let me just take a minute and ground, learn what I need to know about this person I'm about to walk into the room for. So that's what I want, right? Some people, I have a friend who's an endocrinologist, God bless him, who spends hours every night before going through every patient he's going to see the next day, right? We all do it differently. but you can do that review. And there's a human aspect. So at the very top of the chart, it's like, hey, this is Caitlin. She's a mom of 2 kids. She's a doctor mom, right? She works as a doctor and she's a mom, and her life is crazy. And her husband is Cam, and they split, time with the kids. That can all come up right at the top, so that when you walk in, you're like, oh, hey, Caitlin, how are the kids? Right? You get to make that human connection immediately. And it's humanity in medicine, and then all the details you need without having to, chart dig, like gold dig to the bottom.
And that's patient populated, like the little notes, right?
That's right. It's patient populated.
So why notes and not just chat?
That's a great question. Like, why not have just a chat bar that they can ask questions to? Why also do the ambient note taker? I just want to make sure I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. Both. I think both is what we went with, because both is better. So there is a chat, so people can ask questions of their medical record, right? And that's going to be out in the next month. We have it working. We are going to push it out so that people can have it in there, and depending on what tier they have in final. Chats are super important for asking questions of things that are in your medical record, for finding things, for understanding things. Hey, when was it that I last got my thyroid checked, without having to dig? Super valuable. The other thing that chat can do is it can tee up questions that you may want to ask your provider. So we won't give medical advice. That's something that Meinl does not do, because we really want to foster that clinician-patient relationship. And I want a clinician to have all the information they need so that we can make the best advice as clinicians, give the best advice. But what we can do is say, here are some questions that you might want to ask your provider, so that when they see you, they ask you. It's also really helpful for me as a doctor, because it decreases inbox burden. So rather than that person being like, oh, I better send another message asking my provider these 10 questions right now, it tees it up for the visit. So it says, we're going to go ahead and add this to your question queue. And then when they're in their next visit, all those questions pop up, and they have the note taker on, it takes down the responses. So they ask a question, it can hear it, you respond as a doc, you tell them the answer, and then it keeps that in their record so that they can look it up again later.
No, I love it. You're empowering the patient. The average visit with the physician is only about 13 minutes if you're lucky. That's what the national average says. And in those 13 minutes, we all know it's like, good morning, how's your day going? How was the football game? And then by the time you get into it, it's like a minute of medical education. And that's the minute of medical education the patient gets outside of, let's say, ChatGPT or Dr. Google. Back in 23, because of that, I created a GPT that was called MediHelper. And the whole idea is I gave it to my patients and I say, hey, before you come see me, don't put any of your HIPAA disclaimer stuff, but just you. And then it would have all the questions to ask me and what not to ask and follow up and blah, blah, blah. So that those 13 minutes are very efficient. So I love to see that you took it to another level.
And I imagine the hospital setting too, like how valuable that would be, because you have different doctors coming in, different specialists coming in, and they can capture that, which I think that's one of the most difficult times as a patient to really retain information, because you're in a stress state. So I think there's a lot of applications too beyond clinic for sure.
Absolutely. And my husband is a pulmonary critical care doctor, so we talk about this a lot. There's critical time when you're the patient and you're in the hospital and people are coming in and out. And even the other doctors, right? I walk in and the patient tells me that someone told them something. And I'm like, who was that? Like, who told you that this was what we were going to do? And they're like, I don't know. And then I don't know.
Harvey just visits hospitals for no reason, puts on his white coat and just messes up patients.
No, it was the nutritionist, right? It was. I was trying to track down what doctor it was to ask, and keep track of it. And they don't remember because, like you said, they're stressed. And then there's also
this is a very hard engineering problem. We worked on Save Life AI, and I'm just going to be honest with you, it's very hard. What you're describing is actually a continuous ambient scribe system that everyone uses, which is, again, an AI adoption problem in the first hand. Then the second problem is that how do you basically improve continuous intelligence? Then you're talking about, so just to let people know, audience know that how hard that problem is. And then lastly, clinical summarization for doctors and physicians, because clearly that is part and parcel. And then lastly, we come to patients itself. Ed Marks is our bestie. He's actually at the airport. He actually, is part and parcel of some of the hospital systems, serves at board positions, and essentially a super patient himself. When I say a super patient, is because he is an AI-enabled patient in the first place. So not only does he provide context of hospital systems, how are they thinking, board members, how are they thinking, but he himself provides insights like Harvey, that how an AI enabled healthcare system, healthcare economics should work. And Vinaya Health is all about patients, essentially patient journey, care coordination, includes essentially data formation, data contextualization, and data summarization. Before you hang up and go to any flights or anything, I just wanted you to have some questions answered from her, and what your thoughts are in overall this discussion.
Yeah, now I'm settled in at the airport, so I'm all good, and no, I appreciate it. And yeah, before I forget, I just came from Nebraska Medicine, and we spent a few hours with the CEO and some of the leadership there, and it was pretty amazing in terms of their adoption of AI. I don't think there's of all the hospitals I visit around the world, this may be the top one so far in terms of AI thinking, transformation, actually doing the work, and developing a lot of their own stuff. I found that super, super interesting. Oftentimes we think about AI and we associate it with, the hospitals with big marketing departments, and 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 sometimes we don't think about what's happening in Mid-America. So it was kind of mind blowing. So I just wanted to share that perspective really quick. Yeah, Caitlin has an amazing background, as you heard in the introduction. I don't know that there's anyone that well-rounded. The only thing, Caitlin, you'll have to be a CIO or at some point. Although I know you have one on your board, so that's very cool. But your experience as a entrepreneur, and obviously at the state, and then as a hospital academic medical center CEO, I mean, is astonishing. What sort of, for those, there's a lot of other leaders, for those who don't have that same background, what would you recommend? So let's just say there's other physician entrepreneurs and they don't have the benefit of that very holistic background. What are ways in which they could supplement that? So I know this isn't specific about Vinyl, but I think Vinyl is shaped because of your experience and thinking, and as a practitioner and dealing with patients and families and all the things that have already been talked about. So I don't want to restate it. But for those that don't have that kind of 360 background, what are some ideas you might have for people to kind of get as much perspective as they can? So both as a clinician, but also as an entrepreneur that's not a clinician. How do they supplement? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, how do they get this vast experience and insights that you have?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk about it, and always, of course, happy to chat with folks or connect on LinkedIn if people want to pick my brain further. But the reality is, everybody, we said this at the beginning, right? But everybody who's in this, almost everybody who's in healthcare, went in it to try to help people or do the right thing. But of course, everybody's seeing it from such a different angle or such a different lens. And one mistake I think people make when they think about policy or government, because they see the policies that come out, or they see some of the programs and they think, oh, they're clunky, oh, they're not grounded in reality, oh, they have no idea how things work. And it's so frustrating on the outside when that's the case. The reality of working in a system that big is that it is hard to turn the ship. It's like turning the Titanic, right? It's really hard to move. But when you move it, the impact is so big. And so I think about it as they need partners on the outside who can be nimble and help them move it. and we have to partner together and pilot and try things. And then the government is really good for scaling those things. So once you know how they work and what works and why it works, and here are the numbers that show this is how this works, then we move it fully into a process and give it to a whole group of people, and then the impact can be enormous. And just know that the people inside often do know what would work better, but it's getting it to change that is the hard part, and getting all the buy-in that's hard. They're on your side. They also want it to work better. So if you go in and say, oh, you must not care about X, that's not almost ever the case. They care deeply, and they also want it to work better. So go in with solutions. And the other thing I would say is that there is so much, part of what really drove me to create Vinyl, there is so much duplication in the system. And I'll tell you, the big one we're trying to solve is care management, right? Providers have care managers or navigators in their offices or at the system level or in population health. Payers have care managers or navigators that are trying to help complex patients or patients that, you know, have really high healthcare utilization, you know, direct that. Then there's government who's doing the same thing. I spent millions of dollars on care management at the Department of Health. Then Human Services is spending all that money. Then the payers themselves trying to partner with Human Services are duplicating efforts. Then there's pharma who might be reaching out to people. I mean, everybody's doing the same thing. And none of those care managers communicate with each other. And the only way to make that work is to have the patient be the one in the center. So if you're a provider and you're saying, hey, patient, I want you to do X, you know, get this lab done. And that person doesn't have a ride. And this keeps happening and they never get this lab done and they keep ending up in the ER, right? Then maybe your population health is reaching out to them. Maybe the payer is reaching out to them. Maybe I have someone at the Department of Health is reaching out to them to say like, hey, your kiddo never got their lead level checked, right? We have all these things happening and none of them know. And so that patient is like, I've got 20 people texting me. I'm getting hammer texted and spammed and I don't want to answer my phone, and they're overwhelmed. They're already overwhelmed. But if the patient can say, hey, this is what I need a ride. And let's say in Vinyl, they say, I need a ride. You as the provider know that if you have a care manager in the office, they can see that's what the patient needs. So can the care manager at health. So can the care manager at the payer. Then a neighbor says, I can give you a ride. And the patient's like, great, thanks, neighbor. Then that ride's taken care of. Number one, not are we all hammer texting that patient. Number two, we're not even spending taxpayer dollars to get that patient to the lab because their neighbor can take them. It's like the most beautiful way to save money by also letting the patient be empowered and ask for what they need. So number one, when you think about this stuff, make sure the patient's at the center. That's why we all went into this. Number two, think deduplication. What problem is everyone trying to solve? And don't just be in there trying to solve a problem. Think about how everyone else is also solving it.
That is such a huge freaking problem. I mean,
yes.
it's just,
and number three,
the same goddamn neurologist gets the same CT scan, MRI report. Then you get it from the neurosurgeon. Then you get it from the chiropractor. And then the AI is just like, and then all of this is a mess. And just okay, I think, Caitlin, me and you, I'm going to send you my cell phone number. We're going to talk more and then collaborate because we don't want to solve the same problem and actually go to market faster. But you're so right. I mean, I just want to make sure that the audiences understand this because then there are 16 different channels. Direct secure share via email, which sometimes sends an XML file, sometimes sends a PDF file. And then there is, of course, freaking effects in this day and age because we don't know how to use, digital technologies. 70% of data is still transferred in medical through e-faxes. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And everyone talks about HIPAA, like as if that is going to solve like the privacy issues while everyone is sending crap material through unsecured channels. Again, I apologize for my rant, Dr. Baston, but anyways, I just wanted audiences to really understand what the shit is happening in healthcare. And that's why Edward is actually moving to Turkey because he wants to get some hair plugs and free healthcare for now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Anyways, go
So
ahead.
right.
Sorry.
No, it's brilliant. And it's so right to kind of point back to these things that are so frustrating for patients. My patients always say, what we say is, we don't want you to have to feel like a broken record anymore, right? Everywhere you go, you're repeating the same thing. You're resending the same things. You're trying to share. How many times does your provider say like, oh yeah, well, we're just going to redo that x-ray because we don't have the actual image unless you can get a CD of your x-ray and bring it into my office. Like, is this really where we are? We just repeat things, and it's not a good experience for patients, and it's not a good experience for providers either. We duplicate so much. When I was health commissioner, I got to go to Taiwan and visit a lot of the health ministry there, and many of the officials, the government officials who had created their health system. It's one of the best health systems in the world, in my opinion. It does not have access problems. You can get in very quickly, same day. I went to a community provider and I was like, so what is the wait like to get a new primary care, appointment? And they were like, what do you mean? Like an hour? And I was like, you mean same day, always same day? They're like, of course. Why wouldn't we see someone who comes in? No wait. That's not how they do things. And everyone has insurance, and when you have your insurance, you have a card, and the provider can pop it into their computer, and all your health history comes up. Now it's a mix of private and public providers. You can see an acupuncturist, you can see your private specialist, or you can go to the public system, and people don't have access issues. They live on average 10 years longer than we do from a life expectancy perspective, and it costs a third of what US healthcare costs. So the answers are in the world, right? And vinyl doesn't solve all those problems, right? We can talk about access. I'd love to. I love talking about that problem. We aren't necessarily fixing universal healthcare, but we are fixing universal record. We are a way that somebody, just like that card, can walk in and the provider can get the information they need in a second from outside in, from that acupuncturist, from your chiropractor, from your doula, from whoever, and from your big epic systems all together. And if we work together on this deduplication effort, we absolutely will be where you're talking about being, where we stop faxing things.
Correct. And that the whole problem of requests of information, ROF, interestingly, I mean, chiropractors and acupuncturists and everyone sends information much faster as compared to hospitalists. Just to let you know, another big, the turnaround time to get a complete record information is now 6 weeks. It costs about $1,000 to $1,200 per complete patient record, at least. That's the lowest. Actually, it can go up to $3,000 in terms of manual labor. And of course, AI is going to change for us. We are actually doing this as a medical chronology for mainly personal injury cases. But those are different niches. And then I love it that Dr. Baston and Vinyl Health is doing it for the patients, because that's the core thing, right? There's a different way of business proposition of bringing these technologies forward. But as I said, would love to work with you directly as well, the Vinyl Health team. But more importantly, bringing these technologies to patients is extremely, extremely important. Have you thought about connecting it with Google Health and Apple Watch and those services as well? In short, moving from what we use internally is MedTech, which is Epic and all your medical records, to wellness, and which is where Harvey comes in, and he becomes every week more younger, which is insane. So, and more handsome, which is kind of odd. But that's where AI assisted wellness comes in, and Harvey is going to show you some of the things that he uses. But what I'm saying is that, have you thought about that?
Absolutely. As a primary care doctor, I love talking about wellness and keeping people well and keeping people healthy and moving away from a sick care system, right? All of this is stuff that made me go into population health and made me want to be a health commissioner and made me want people to know, hey, these are things that you do on a daily basis that provide longevity, that make people feel better, that make you live your best life, as I used to say to patients, right? Or to people in the general public in New Jersey. That's my goal. I want everyone to live their best lives. And yeah, Harvey, I also want to look as young as you as I keep getting older.
Well,
So-
let me just tell you 2 seconds. So what I did is I combined my genetics, my wearables, my EMR, and then obviously we're all doctors, and I put it all together into a database. And then I'm in the process of connecting it to this little guy, and then I can talk to it and be like, hey, what was my HRV last night? Or hey, how am I trending? And then it'll be like, oh, by the way, XYZ. And then the geeky side of me, I created an AI agent that scrapes clinical trial information on longevity, health span, and best practices. And then it combines who Harvey Digital Twin is with that, puts it together, and then it gives me a report of saying, okay, here are the best practices for you, Harvey, based on your genetics, blah, 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 blah. So it's pretty cool. So I can actually tell it has helped me lose weight. It has helped me appear younger, and I actually have more energy. So I feel like the years that I have more energy in them.
Amazing. And that's the perfect, when people are using this to help navigate their own care, the sky's the limit when we talk about connections, right? We don't all have to reinvent the wheel, but I can talk to the people who are dialing all of that wellness data, and we can just hand it to people. They have a single connection. They know exactly what they're doing for themselves. Then we can summarize it and they can share that with their provider so their provider knows, right? These things, this is where with the right partnerships and the right thought partners, we can bring all of this to the person and put the person in the center. I love what you're doing, Harvey. And I think it's absolutely, longevity is such a buzzword. And for a long time, when I first went into population health, I was like, well, I have people who can't eat. And I have people who have lead in their water or in their paint. And I have people who, I have these things that are clearly affecting their longevity. And I really want to keep working on the environment and what things help people be healthy on a daily basis. And they deserve all of it. They deserve that. We deserve all of these environmental things that can help us live longer. And we deserve to know what things we should be tapping into and have reminders and all this kind of beautiful information given to us to help us have the most longevity possible. The right medications for us based on our genetics, the right access. And of course not, if we step one, deduplicate all these efforts, then we can focus on the things on that next level of health for people.
Well, and I think this very much ties into my vision for the future of medicine. It's working smarter, not harder, using our AI to help us get there, but also with the goal of living our best lives, as you put it, because I love that, because what's longevity without the quality of life there? So I love that. And I think your background gives you such a unique perspective. I do believe that some of the best leaders understand each component so well like you do, but not everyone is going to have that ability to do so. But as long as we have someone at the core who gets it, you can really kind of help those teams navigate the directions they need to go in.
Absolutely. And happy to partner and happy to share ideas. That's what we're stronger together. We're all in this together. And I absolutely believe for us, it's not about doing this in a silo. It's not about trying to win by beating everyone out. I am truly an all boats rise mentality person. You have to be if you're in government.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of things that we tie in to make these massive systems work for people, we really can. And government is better when technology is helping at the helm. Government is better when there are outside partners and innovators and people pushing the system. And it really can work for people in the right way if we make it work the right way and we think about it. So I'm happy to sit outside, inside, or beside anyone that we need to pull all these boats up.
Perfect. I mean, I love it. Now we come back to, and that's the question for you both, Isha and Dr. Baston, is that wellness as a category. And I'm going to ask you as a parent. I have a 11-year-old. Some of the time she's very active, but there's an iPad time, which unfortunately is increasing. And then in this context, I'm a very healthy person and everything, but as a habit formation, which I didn't do. Harvey is doing it. I'm not doing it, although I have more technology access than him, interestingly. So as you both look at what we call using data for behavioral change, right? That's the question. So first of all, comment on that. Then more importantly, comment on, as a parent, should I work into these new technologies as a habit formation for them to be at a younger age or not, or is it child abuse? I'm just with these.
Those are very
go ahead.
extreme.
I'm just kidding. But I mean, yeah, I get it. But what I'm saying is, you know how I ask questions. It should be inflammatory, you know. So thoughts on that. Should we make baby Harveys do Harvey Castro in future?
We need his little robots in each of our homes, I think.
I
So
certainly
let's-
think wellness is a great category, and empowering. I believe in knowledge is power and empowering people to do that. I think there are a lot of ways that parents can involve their kids, and it doesn't mean being on technology 24/7, right? You can involve kids and have them involved at a point in the day. You can absolutely. What I empower, I have a kiddo who gets migraines. I want her to keep a migraine journal or a migraine log, right? There are a lot of ways to do that, where if she's writing something down and we're transferring it into tech, that's one piece. She also can write things down or put them on her, on her tablet or in her laptop in a minute, and not stay in it and not do other things in it, right? But log things like that. Some of that information is really valuable. And empowering kids so that they are part of their own journey and help themselves get better is, I think, beautiful. I think someone asked me once if I'm doing all this care coordination and pulling everything to the patient, do I think I'm putting the burden back on the patients rather than leaving it with the system? And my answer to that, I think it's a great question, because it's something we should always be aware of. But my answer is knowledge is power. There is giving people information and letting them have real choice, letting them feel like they're at the table and they can pick, they can choose their own adventure. They can also give me information about what it means for them to live their best lives. That's the optimal answer. Us doing
Actually,
everything.
I'm gonna come back to this. Very important. What Vinyl Health does essentially is, so there are 4 categories of information. There is this, information, then converts to data, then knowledge, and then wisdom. The beauty of Vinyl Health for patients is that it converts that information automatically into structured data, which is all back-end process. But more importantly, the amount of information that is coming crystallizes it, grounds it to your health data and your wellness data, and creates knowledge. And of course, wisdom is what not to do. Knowledge is what to do. So actionable items become. So I'm not a paid advisor or anything in the company, which we will talk about it. But what I'm saying is that Vinyl Health is so important that it converts essentially information and data through the AI into knowledge, which is actionable items that you can do, which is the point we need for behavioral change in the first place.
Absolutely. And we use all the right language. I'm an addiction doctor, right? So behavior change is like my bread and butter. It's what I think about all the time. What motivates people? Shame is anti-motivating. Shame hits your pain center in your brain, and it makes people withdraw or have adverse behaviors, right? Shame is bad. We don't want to shame people. Whereas motivation and motivational interviewing and helping people feel empowered to make decisions and helping guide them to, when I do this, I feel better. Great. What's the next thing? It comes out of their own mouths. It comes out of their own ideas. They get to drive what they want, and we reinforce that, make them feel good about themselves. That's motivating. And so we use all of those same tenets, and exactly like you're saying, if we distill this information, they understand it, then we motivate them with their own internal motivators, right? The things that motivate us as individuals, that's what does it. My kid doesn't want to not get migraines because she's grumpy. She wants to not get migraines because she wants to play on the playground, right? The things that motivate her might be different than the things that motivate me as her mom. I'm like, man, is she grumpy, But
And And shame is a barrier to
Yes.
communication with your provider. So I think having a way to track that and kind of like, have it be a more internal process, but something that you can then give to your doctor as actionable data, I think that's very valuable. And to go back to the question of, what do we need to be doing with our kids? So without getting on my soapbox too much, because I would easily take up the rest of the time talking about technology and childhood, but do we need to get our kids used to using the tech? Not necessarily. We have to be very careful with a developing brain. It's different than an adult brain. And we're living at a time where it's just coming at them from everywhere. My kids' school, actually, I was very happy to hear this. They backed off on tech in the classroom this year. And I think a lot of schools are adopting that because we're having more data come out on how it impacts our children. But the concept of empowering kids to be aware of their health and wellness, to be taking action towards improving how they feel and having an awareness and understanding of how their body functions, what makes it feel the best, how well are we sleeping, what kind of, foods are we eating and how does that make us feel? And, kind of taking ownership of that at a young age, I think is so important. But do they need to track that using technology from a young age? Not necessarily, because they're gonna pick it up. I'm not worried that we're not setting them up for success if we don't integrate it into their lives now, because they're gonna be fine. They're gonna learn how to use it just fine as they get older. But when they're younger, the focus, I feel, needs to be on the awareness and the empowerment aspect of it.
That's
I wanna-
so true. And I want to hear what you have to say too, Harvey. I was just going to say, as parents, we can do that for them, right? We can track things for them if we need to, and kids can absolutely just live and be experiencing things in the real world, but just have that tapped in knowledge. I feel like there's so much to learn about awareness of how you feel, tapping into your body, not necessarily just working through it or being inundated with either technology or busyness, which we love to do in our culture, but tapping in and teaching them.
I agree. I love summarizing things, and from 10,000 feet high to what you said has to do with neuroplasticity. If we never form the connections as a child in our brain, how can we expect that action if we don't even know what that exists? Case in point, you and I we're all older-ish. And I know Ed could for sure tell me he agrees with this statement. When we're in the car, he and I can have a great conversation, drive the whole United States and not turn on a device. And we can have creativity where we can have really good creativity with the cars and what we see out there. Our kids, unfortunately, can't because they're so used to this, because they haven't made those connections. To your point with the school systems, by taking away that, pushing them to make those connections, make that neuroplasticity, then introduce it to them in stages, then that's the key. Absolutely. The analogy in medical school, and I love this in residency, is residents. Let's just pretend it's a 3-year program. Year 1, 0 technology. Year 2, they start introducing technology, but not all the functions. By year 3, assuming they're going to graduate in year 3, that's when they say, okay, here you go for the neuroplasticity. So that's my summary.
I love that.
So I'm gonna Ed, do you have anyone has any questions? Because I'm gonna ask the last one and then we're gonna call it quits. That's gonna be a hard one, Dr. Bass.
I love hard questions. You don't go into this if you don't love trying to solve hard problems, right?
And you can use AI to answer the question.
Because I had to train in medicine without it. Yeah.
Correct. Now, of course, Save Life AI is FDA approved. We have 4 FDAs. We are high trust cybersecurity certified. That opens up a very good area of collaboration and coordination between us. But what I'm saying is that one of the things that I'm worried about, and some of the things that I've built, like there's 1,000 VLM models, right, that I'm not releasing because of A, regulation, and B, where's the AI governance? In WinIL. So the short and long of the question is, Isha wants to use it for your service, and she's going to come and call me and say, Junaid, I want to use WinIL. Can you test it? Or can you at least advise me on it? Was there any AI governance process in that team or anything? And I think that goes back to honestly, at the end of the day, trust sells. And you bring a lot of trust personally, which is very, very amazing. But other than that, what is your process for both cybersecurity and AI governance?
I love this. I love this question. And it's something that, of course, I think about because I was in government and I was a hospital CEO and right, all these things. So critical. I will tell you, first, I'm going to start answering this question by telling you about our CTO. So our head of technology, our CTO, Eric Yui, wonderful human. I hope you get to meet him at some point. He has a background in ethics and psychology. So he was actually a psychology and ethics PhD before going into tech. Talk about the right person to think about ethics and guardrails on your AI. This is what he lives and breathes. So he loves tech and he's doing a lot of the building and running our dev team. But always he starts with, what are the guardrails? How are we setting this up? And how are we testing it to make sure that our AI isn't going rogue? Right? Especially with agentic and all these other things we can do. How are our internal guardrails the last line of defense? And he, from the beginning, has built the back end to be secure because we're building a healthcare app, right? We, of course, are using a lot of things to go fast with design and code and using AI to point at ourselves to make sure that, we're trying as best we can to be secure beyond belief. And AI is really good at that. I would say AI is really good at trying to hack your system so that you can keep checking security when you point it that way. So there are a lot of modern tools that we're using to try to keep ourselves honest. But day in and day out, from day one, we've thought about this. And the other thing, just to talk about trust for a minute, is about data control. The whole purpose of our application is that people should understand and have all of their own information in their own hands. They should be able to control where it goes. They should be able to have the person in the loop and say, yes, this is right. No, this isn't right. I've been prescribed this medicine, but I've never taken it. And I will never take it because it makes me feel like crap or whatever. And as a doctor, I need to know that, because if I keep thinking the person's taking the medicine and then I'm going on that assumption and they're not, it's not working. So people controlling their own data is part of this. When things are completely free in the world, you are the product, right? If everything you're doing is free, you are it. They have your data. They're doing who knows what with it. They're selling it to people, and those people are going to reach out to you and push you into certain things. Sometimes that can be helpful for people, and sometimes it's not. And so I'm
just going to plug it in.
Yeah.
On the black market, your data is available for $2. Contact me if you need it.
Yeah.
It is insane. It is faster to get data from black market today as compared to original sources. Insane. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's so true. There's a group called the Light Collective that I've met with and adore. And they're helping kind of really look at data privacy and user agreements and these things to say, okay, where is this on a scale? And I have them partnering to say, tell me, like, you look at my own data policies and user agreements. Our goal is that we want people to control their own data. Are we succeeding? So by using outside people looking in, or like you said, right, use the right consultant, you look in. We have an advisor who runs a cybersecurity company, perfect advisor to have, right? You want somebody who's constantly looking outside in and keeping me honest and keeping my CTO honest. So
what about those AI summaries that are generated? How are you actually making sure that they are accurate, all of those? Where is that governance coming in?
Yeah, that's an absolutely great question. So first of all, we have an amazing LLM partner, which is a big part of it, and fully trained on medical evidence. And a lot of the early testing for us was record all these different kinds of visits, everything from mental health, which I will say blew me away at how good the LLM is with their level, and then our LLM on top of it, at distilling mental health. And then when they're doing it on medical, making sure that all the medical language is being picked up appropriately and that plain language summary is coming through and appropriate. So our beginning summary was all this, but we also have physician advisors. One, I'm a doctor, right? But we have other physician advisors that are looking at it. And when we have doctor in the loop, we get flagged if the doctor says, no, this wasn't right. we know if somebody is editing something. Are they adding, or are they saying, no, I said RAST testing, not rash testing? And are we picking that up right? You know? So that's how we train. And all things in AI are continuous learning, right? Continuous training, continuous learning. And the big flags for me were things that I was like, cannot go live yet, cannot go live yet. You know, these things have to be fixed. We have to pick up education in this way. We have to make sure this language is right. We have to be able to say we don't know.
One of the lovely reasons that I believe in companies that are led by physicians, not to toot my own horn, is because of that. We have understood in the last 200 years, or actually 2000 years history of medical, and that's still our emblem. There's a snake on it, and that is basically medicine started with snake oil. And people forget that consistently. We are and will always be, unfortunately, experimental, which is very odd what the general thinking is. And AI is now the new iterant tool. And people will sell snake oil, and hopefully companies like Vinay Health heading by physicians who has history of governance, CTOs with history of ethics, bring true, verifiable, explainable AI to the world, partnering with Save Life AI or not. But the idea still remains that I love her attitude as well of what we call partnering than anything, because this is something that no one company can solve, including major multi-billion-dollar companies. I mean, their attitude is different. They just acquire startups, which are fine too. But long story short, we are going to do this. Patient the governance of their own data, summarization and understanding data into knowledge is the key missing piece, in my opinion, for AI adoption at a broader level, which is the key problem Vinyl Health is solving. Thank you, Dr. Baston, for coming. As usual, we are Texans. Unfortunately, we don't like New Jersey that much. So I'm just kidding.
We can bring it
together. Yes, I'm just messing with you. We are all in Texas, by the way. Ed, Harvey, Isha. Whenever you are, please come to us. Harvey brings some great Spanish food to the table. I bring some amazing Pakistani Indian food to the table. So we're going to have some fun, and would love to meet your CDO and other people with the team online, so we can chart a process, or at least just transfer of knowledge. Thank you, everyone who was joining live. I'm extremely grateful for your presence. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And Doc, don't